I think while we're having the discussion about, children and whatnot who are being trafficked, I think it's very important that we also need to talk about their very first handler. And trigger warning, by the way, their very first handler, the person who may be responsible for all this happening to them are their parents. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. I've spent many years working with people who have been trafficked as well as people who have been traffickers and corrections. And one of the things I'd like to say is the difference between, a lot of you who watch me, falling victim to being trafficked and those who are actually trafficked is your parents, and there's levels to abuse. But what I have found, it's true in almost all cases of children who are trafficked, unless they were, abducted and things like that. But I've also worked with people who've been abducted at a very early age as well. But what I've found to be true across the board is most kids who are trafficked are usually done dirty by their parents, and their parents willingly give them over, willingly put them out, or put them in the hands of their actual handlers. So just as much as, people who have committed these atrocities need to be held accountable, parents who didn't show up, who were willingly giving their kids over and who wanted their kids to elevate to stardom, so they left them unattended with strangers and adults that they had no business being with, should also be held accountable too. Let's not forget that. This is especially true for parents who are quick to spit out the narrative, my only job is to give you food, water, and shelter. No, your job is to protect your children and prevent things like this from happening as well. So you are responsible for your child's welfare and their well-being, and to make sure that they are safe and cared for. And I don't think there's enough attention that's being, that parents are getting from that. The first thing I do whenever I talk to someone who's ever been trafficked or, whatnot, or has gone through some things, especially from an extremely young age, where were your parents? Where was even your extended family? Where was the community at? What were they doing? What did they have to say about these things? And the answer is almost always the same. They were on drugs. They didn't care. They put me out. The extended family didn't want to be bothered with it. No one wanted to say anything because they didn't want to rock the boat, or they didn't care for my mama, or they didn't care for my daddy. And people just look the other way. And it's astounding to me how people can look the other way or expect to not share fault in not being a good parent. Protection is a basic human right. It is not something that has to be earned. It is a basic human right for children and really all people, really. Your child would never meet the boogeyman if you weren't neglectful, if you weren't emotionally or verbally abusive, or put them out, or, teach your children how to, be discerning when it comes to strangers, such as stranger danger, that kind of stuff. But also allow your child to have autonomy over their own body. Your child doesn't need to be sitting on a grown stranger's lap. Your child who is, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 doesn't need to be worrying about being a star or creating attention from you. This is why I always advocate for those kids that are being pimped out by their parents on social media. Parents want their kids to attract attention for them, to attract love interest for them, to get them paid, all in the name of a paycheck. It's ridiculous. And there needs to be better protection around children, more consequences for parents who aren't doing their full duty and due diligence to protect their children and give their children the life that they deserve. A life that is free from harm, a life that is safe, free from the boogeyman touching on them and taking advantage of them, a life without abuse. You have to do better. So for every predator that's taken advantage in the Epstein files and otherwise, you need to be asking, where the hell were those parents and what do they have to say for themselves? And you also need to possibly even be considering charges for them, because there's no reason that 3, 4, 5, and 6-year-olds should be staying with any grown man or grown woman that is not a close family relative and their mom and dad doesn't know what's going on. There's no reason for that. And again, child abduction is totally different. I could do a separate video on that if necessary, if you guys want that. But parents need to be answering some questions too. I hope that helps. Thank you guys so much. And I'm serious about this stuff. People need to be outraged. There needs to be consequences. It is a bad example. It's a beyond bad example that we are setting for predators out there. What the world is seeing, and take it from somebody who spent many years working with predators, still do to a certain extent. What the world is seeing is that predators get to go scot-free, and really the only person who ever gets to pay lifelong consequences are victims, and that is not right. There needs to be justice. And I don't care, I don't care. I'm going to say it loud enough. There needs to be justice for victims, and part of that needs to be brought against parents who were negligent and irresponsible in caring for their children.